You know, I've heard comments, guys, about our theme song that some people don't like it. They find it annoying. One person said it sounded like a cheesy sports review theme song, but I love the theme song because to me it gets me pumped every single time. And I think we should approach the subject being pumped and not, like I don't want a theme song that sounds like the Golden Girls,
I wrote that theme song, so I'm offended. I didn't really. I
No,
don't.
but you could have. That's the important part. Still hotter than blazes out here in BC. I'm still sweating through my sweatshirt, but I like to dress it up whenever we have guests on today. I just want to find out about you, Katie, and you, Michael, just about your local area. If you guys are burning as much as we are right now.
No, not really. It's a nice 87 degrees up here in the Rocky Mountains. So,
Nice
you know,
87.
it's nice. Sat
I
out on
don't
the
know.
back porch with the birds this morning, had coffee.
I don't know what it is here, but I know that the National Weather Service added a new color to their heat maps. So it's
Purple,
true.
like dark
Yeah,
purple.
it's magenta. So it used to just be like blue, white, yellow, and red meant like dangerous, and now magenta means like do not go outside at all. So if the Earth gets any hotter, we're gonna have to dip into like parts of the color spectrums that like the human eye can't even see, which which will be
It's
fine
very
because
funny.
we'll all be dead by then. So
So
Yeah.
it will be blind, but the heat will blind us anyway.
Oh
Why
no.
is it black on the screen? I don't get it. What's going on? Nobody's going to survive the next week. It's going to be everybody's going to burn alive. But it's I guess it is what it is. I mean, it is summer after all. I just find maybe they're going through extremes. Like even here, they're like, oh, it's 29. Of course, we're Celsius. You guys are Fahrenheit, but 29 is it's pretty
very hot.
hot,
Yeah.
right? But they'll have it in red, like it's never been heard of before in summer that it's 29 degrees. Like, come on, like it's summer. That's like I
That's what
think there's
happened.
more fear mongering now than ever about climate change. Because to me, I don't see the difference between this summer and last summer. It's the
Really?
same
Oh,
heat.
I see differences here.
Oh, really?
Especially with like precipitation and humidity and things, it is different. Like Florida just got in the last 4 years had four once in 200 year weather events for precipitation, and that's the first time that's happened in
Hmm.
Greece. So
That's true. You guys are the country below us, so you're closer to the
Country
equator. You would
below.
have you would have more issues than Canada does.
just
Uh,
give it a few years; it'll come to you.
Yeah, and we're honored today to have Dan Harari joining us from, I believe it's Los Angeles,
I believe
California.
so. I believe so. And
Bel-
actually, I live in Beverly Hills, but I'm not a millionaire. So I have to say that I do live in Beverly Hills.
Millionaire at heart, but
I'm a millionaire adjacent. Literally, I'm a millionaire adjacent.
I fraternize with billionaires all the time. I just don't have the money myself. Yeah.
I've made million, honest to God, because I've had my own PR firm for almost 30 years. I've been a Hollywood publicist this year for 40 years, my 40th anniversary.
Wow.
I've made millions of dollars. And my mother goes, if you make a million a year, you spend 1.5. I go, Mom, that's exactly right. So whatever I've ever made in my life, I've overspent into the next year. So, you know, that's
Isn't
how
that
it
the way
went.
it always works,
That's
though?
how it went for me. I
Yeah.
don't know where my money went. I couldn't tell you.
It's like the universe gives you what you want, but not the way you want it. You know what
Well,
I mean?
you don't always manage success well. I mean, I'm not good with money. Let's face it. I have overspent my whole entire life.
I'm the same, especially if I'm at a bookstore. It's just spend, 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 spend. I don't care.
I love spending. It's so great. It's just so great to spend. And then you
Yeah.
go, oh God, I owe 10,000 in taxes. Where's that money going to come? And then you max out your credit cards. It's a whole thing.
It's fun. I personally like that.
It's fun.
I enjoy it very much.
It's
Uh,
fun.
we met Katie. Well, Katie and I were at Contact. Michael, you missed this year, but we met. Well, Katie already knew Dan from before, but I
Oh,
met
Katie and
Dan.
I go way back.
Oh
Way
yeah,
back.
and I met. Well, I was hanging out with Katie there at Contact, but I met Dan at the table where he was attending a Contact in the desert, and Lisa and I just fell in love with him and the whole team at Contact and the Hollywood Alliance. We had a blast. Literally, we had the time of our lives. I don't know. You guys have been to these events before. I don't know how it stands out in the rank of what was the best event, but for us, it was our first. So it was like it was special.
It was only my second. It was only my second.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Actually,
Yeah.
I met Katie at my first one in 2023. Katie was one of the first people I
That
met
was my
last time.
first one too for contact. Not
Was
my
it really? It
conference,
was
but
your
my
it was
first, yeah. So
and
this was only my
and
second
you're an
contact.
old timer in zoology. You've been around a long. I thought you've been like in all of them. Just one,
Uh-uh.
huh?
No.
I
It
mean,
was
someone
cool.
like you'd have to ask Steve Bassett, Jason, like how
Yeah.
this one compared to the last 10 years, because he's probably been to all of them.
Well, yeah, and even I was hearing the stories on stage from Jimmy Church about how the first event everybody was intense and the weather was horrible. And I mean, wow, what a step up to have the Emerald, resort
Well,
as the place to have this now.
the bigger picture. All right, so Contact in the Desert. We can just jump in, I guess. Contact in the Desert a month ago in Indian Wells at the Renaissance Resort. It was the 10th anniversary of Contact in the Desert. However, starting in the 1950s, out in Joshua Tree, there was a man named George Van Tassel, who I'd always heard of, but I never studied him. I recently watched the other day, I watched a documentary. George Van Tassel brought ufology to the California desert in the early 50s.
Hmm.
There's a place in Joshua Tree called the Giant Rock. Katie, have you ever been to Giant Rock?
I haven't been, but
Yeah.
know of it.
Out, and I've not been either, but out in the desert in Joshua Tree is Jason, is a huge, literally a huge, enormous rock, and no one knows how it got there. It's like it's an anomaly, right? It's an anomaly. Uh, so there's a giant rock, and there was a guy who dug a cave under this rock and lived. I don't remember his name, but he lived under the rock, and he loved it there. Well, George Van Tassel in the 50s, he worked for I think Boeing or Hughes Aircraft. He was a genius engineer and he had a small plane. So he used to land his plane next to Giant Rock and hang out with the guy, and I don't remember his name, who lived under Giant, literally lived like a hermit under Giant. So they hung out, hung out. George Van Tassel then is starting to be contacted by extraterrestrials when he's out there. They land, they speak to him, and they say, we want to have a relationship with you. We know who you are. And so now he's telling the world, hey, I've met extraterrestrials. I know them. They visit me out in this by Giant Rock. So starting in the early 50s, once a year, Van Tassel and his wife and I think he had three daughters, they did UFO gatherings outside by Giant Rock in the 50s, right? Well, that went on, I think, for 20 years into the 70s.
Yeah.
So while Contact is 10 years old, this concept of UFO meetings out in that area, it goes back to the 50s. And I just learned that the other day.
That's so cool. And so let's get into the Contact in the Desert and your contribution and what you've been doing with Contact. So how did you get involved with Contact in the Desert to begin with?
Okay, well, everything in the last 2 years of my life revolves around my book here, After They Came, which is a science fiction novel. And we'll get to that in a minute. But because of my novel, I then created the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. And because of that, I then met Ron Janix. Ron Janix is a young guy, really sweet guy. He and his partner, an older man named Gordon Peckrell, they acquired Contact in the Desert early 2023. They bought it from another woman who I never met. Katie, did you ever meet Victoria?
Yeah, I did. I got to meet her last year.
Okay, so I've heard stories of Victoria. I wouldn't know her if I met her. I don't know who that is. But they bought it, and then I befriended, or Ron Janix befriended me, Jason, last summer 2023, a couple of months after Contact. And we had lunch, and he goes, Dan, I know you're a Hollywood publicist. We want to elevate the profile of Contact in the Desert. You're a Hollywood publicist. Can we hire you? I said, yeah, of course. I'm very into this subject. I'm a very good publicist. I've been a publicist forever. I've done I've done Grammys and American Film Institute Lifetime Achievement Awards. I've done red carpets and premieres. I've been doing all that for 40 years. So I said, yeah, sure, I'd love to. So I am the publicist for Contact this past year, a month ago. But I started in November. I was hired in November 2023. It took 7 months for me to gear up. So at Contact, I ran the media room, and in the media room, I'm going to say we had probably 20 or 25 different crews, TV shows, radio shows, podcasters, right, print journalists, photographers who kept coming in and out of the media room, and I ran the media room. And Nick Pope is up there, and Whitley Strieber and George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell and Steve Bassett, and people are coming in and out of the rooms. So that was my, uh, for me, Contact was a three-ring circus, literally three-ring. I'll tell you the three rings. Ring one was the media room, which I ran. Now, if you know the hotel, the media room was way the hell, Katie, I don't know if you were back there, way the hell in the back on the second floor. It's a million miles from civilization. And sometimes I had to go grab a Steve Bassett or I had to grab a Channel 4 News because they couldn't find me. So where I was and where the rest of humanity was a different floor, a million miles, million miles away. So I'm running, and now I just turned 68, right? And I have a bad right knee. I'm running up and down stairs like like a lunatic to run the media room. That's one ring of my three-ring circus. Then the other ring was the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, which I am created, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But we had a table there for different people. Katie, was sat there. Thomas Jane, the movie star, Dee Wallace, the movie star, Dave Foley, comedy TV star, Nick Pope, Danny Sheehan, Steve Bassett, Ron Janix, and Tom Danheiser. Tom is George Norrie's producer. So every hour or so throughout the weekend, different notables were at the HDA booth. Well, I was hosting the booth, so I'm running up around in the media room, and I'm running the booth concurrently. Then along the way, as Katie knows, I hosted a panel, Hollywood Disclosure Alliance panel, and Katie was kind enough to be on that. And Katie, how fun was how fun
That
was
was a
that?
blast. I
I
mean,
was there. Yeah,
how
that
cool
was
I get
fun.
to sit next to Dave Foley.
You know what's so funny? Of all the people there, right? Of all the ufology superstars, Dave Foley's a comedy guy, and
Yeah.
like everyone at the end of the panel, everyone, Dave, can I have your autograph? Can I have your-" Everyone loves Dave Foley. I didn't know the guy was that famous. I
Oh
really,
yeah. In Canada, he's Canadian and he
right,
started Kids in the Hall. I mean, we
right.
absolutely love him. There's a movie he did, and nobody knows of it. It's a cult classic as far as I'm concerned, but it's hilarious, and that's called The Wrong Guy, where he thinks the FBI were after him for a murder he didn't commit, but they just always happen to be near him at all times, and he
What a
keeps running away, and they're not even looking for him.
I
It's
love that already. I have to see
Yeah,
that.
it was. I told him last time he was
I'm
on. I'm
writing that
like, dude,
down. I'm writing
yeah,
that down. I
he
have
won
to.
an
That's
award. He won an award recently for it for one of the best movies nobody knows about. He was
that's
so young
already
back
such a
then.
wonderful premise. God, I love it.
Yeah, he's brilliant. But in that movie, like I remember watching, it was like midnight. I'm in Quebec City and I'm bored. So I put on CBC. That movie came on. I nearly pissed my pants. Like it was that funny. So I recommend it to everybody. And if he's
That's
listening, you're welcome. I'm going to promote that movie. I want to bring it back. It's such a
let
great
me
movie.
let me tell you how I met Dave Foley because it's a funny story. So I created HDA last year, and again we'll do that separately. But I created it a year ago, last summer, exactly a year ago. And my UFO friends, oh, you got to get Dave Foley. You got to get Dave Foley. I'm like, no, I know him from some things. I know him from Veep, and I know him from Blast from the Past with Brendan Fraser, one of my favorite movies. So I knew who he was. And I got his email. And I said, "Hey, Dave, everyone's telling me you need to join Hollywood Disclosure." Oh, yeah, hi, Dan. Yeah, I've heard about it. Yeah, I want to join. I'll get back to you. Nothing. Months and months. Okay, Dave, where are you? What's going on? We have an event. We want to meet you. Oh, yeah, yeah. I'll see what I can do. Nothing. Months and months of so that was from June last year. Now we come to January a few months ago. Do you guys know Chrissy Newton?
Yeah.
See my
Katie,
buddy? Yeah.
Katie, you know Chrissy? Okay, so someone I don't remember. I think Ron Janix introduced me to Chrissy Newton. I became friendly with her. She had her 40th birthday party here in LA at a dinner. And she said, "Hey, Dan, do you want to come to my 40th birthday party dinner?" I had just met her the week before. I said, "Sure, I'd love to," because I really like Chrissy. So I go to her dinner. It's at a Korean barbecue restaurant in Beverly Hills. And I sit next to her and we're talking. She's introducing me to her friends. And then I look up and Dave Foley is sitting exactly across from me at the dinner. He's sitting. I go, "Dave Foley?" "Yeah." I go, "I've been trying to get you for a year." He goes, "Oh, you're Dan?" And then we bonded instantly. And then we've been friends since. I mean, it was serendipity. I didn't know he was going to be he's going to be there, and we became friendly. That's how I met Dave Foley.
I read.
Okay, so three rings, right? The media room, the HDA booth and panel, and then me personally, I did a 90-minute lecture the last day about my dad and I and the UFO we saw together, which is a remarkable story. And I was selling my books and autographing my books. So I was there as an author as well. So I was a publicist, head of HDA, and as a speaker author. And I had all three things to do in 6 days, and my head was spinning. My
Yeah.
head was spinning. It was a lot to do.
But yeah, I saw you well, actually, I think I attended almost every single one of Katie's lectures. She was busy too, like every day, and she's part of the Hollywood Alliance
Yeah,
as
she
well.
is one of
Yeah,
our early people. Sure.
yeah, she was a very busy girl at that event, and obviously I hung out with her and her husband Tony almost every night with Lisa. We were just having a blast. But I saw your presentation when you introduced Thomas Jane. I mean, you did such a good job, but he doesn't like to be introduced, so he just came on
Oh,
stage.
you
and,
saw
like,
when I introduced Thomas. I forgot it, but yeah, I also introduced Thomas Jane and I introduced Dee Wallace as well. I forgot about that too.
yeah, and I saw your panel that you did, and you were very good. You handed it out to everybody. Everybody got a fair share. You weren't favoring anybody, so you did extremely well. You could tell the showmanship was definitely there.
Do you like how I tortured Steve Bassett? So, yeah, so for those who weren't there, so Steve Bassett and I created Hollywood Disclosure Lens together, and we're the two fathers of it. And this was our panel. This was our panel. So I'm there backstage with Katie and Dave Foley and the other people on the panel, and like, where's Steve Bassett? And Steve Bassett texted me, Dan, do we have something to do today? I go, Stephen, where the hell are you? This is our panel. Oh God, I forgot. Is that today? He forgot our panel, right? He goes, I'll be there soon. So I started the panel, and there's an empty chair. And I go, you would think Stephen Bassett, who created HDA with me, you'd think he'd be here. So he comes in 15 minutes late. And I said, oh, ladies and gentlemen, the late Stephen Bassett.
He
Now,
was
if
right
you
to my left.
and he was
Yeah,
and he
right
sat
next
next
to
to
Katie.
Katie. Now,
Yeah.
if you know your JFK history,
Right.
on one of his birthdays, Marilyn Monroe sang "Happy Birthday, Dear Mr. President" in Madison Square Garden. She was an hour late. She was an hour late. So Peter Lawford, when she finally got there, Peter Lawford goes, "Mr. President, the late Marilyn Monroe." So I did, ladies and gentlemen, the late. Even past, and then I tortured him because I was so pissed. Because how could he forget our panel? Anyway,
But it was funny because with Stephen Bassett, like his personality is not somebody that you would want to like insult or anything. But with you, you're so friends with him. You're just like, I'm gonna make this one sting. Like that was
I
cool.
love torturing him. He and I have become extremely close friends.
Yeah.
Just so you know, I spent all the 4th of July with him here in LA. We are very, very close. Um, okay, so yeah, that was Contact in the Desert. I think we had about 2,500 people. I got an article, if you haven't seen it, I got an article in the LA Times about Contact. First time ever that they wrote about UFOs in the entertainment section, ever
Wow.
in their history, that wasn't related to like Close Encounters or Star Wars or something. They wrote about UFOs as a phenomenon, and I did that. Um, I got stories on almost every local TV news channel, radio shows in the area. I mean, George Knapp and George Norrie both said to my face, Danny, you did a hell of a job promoting this. And I said, thanks. I'm a publicist. I mean, that's what I do. So we got a lot of press. They had a good turnout. I believe financially they broke even.
Hmm.
Last year they lost money. So at least that was an improvement. I would imagine I'll be the publicist there again next year.
Hope so.
Yeah, well, as UAP Studies is partnering up with the Hollywood Alliance as an affiliate, and I've fell in love with Ron Janix and his brother Rob. They were both
Oh, I
awesome.
didn't meet Rob. I heard
Oh
of him.
man,
I
he was
heard of
a
him, but
hoot.
I did. He was
Yeah.
sick. He was sick the day before the show started.
Oh wow.
I heard he was very, very sick.
I think I hung out with Rob more than I hung out with Ron. So every time I saw Ron, I was like, "Dude, brother, this is so cool." And even Jamie, Jamie was fantastic. I can't speak enough of how nice everybody at Contact was. But yeah, Ron. I mean, right away, the Contact was so nice to the podcast and invited us, over there and offered us the VIP. So we only had to cover the airfare and the hotel, but. Uh, I'm just blown away by the generosity of this field, including yourself. Like just the amount of time you guys had no problem talking to the general audience and just being nice. And that it was refreshing. It was almost a bummer to come back home. because you're like, you miss, it's almost like church and community. Like I used to be in church and that sense of community, and that's what it felt like at Contact.
That's exactly right. That really is exactly right. I've been studying ufology for 20 years as an outsider. But again, I only went to Contact last year and I just befriended Steve Bassett, and I'll tell you how that happened. And that's when I met Katie, who I adore and love and wish she was single and wish she lived in LA, quite frankly. And she knows that and I've told her. Um, but no, I've been to Alien Cons and Comic Cons and like every other cons. And I was on Fox News the other night, Tuesday night here in LA. I was on Fox News talking about my crazy stuff. And the guy said, describe Contact in the desert. And I said to the reporter, I said, Contact in the desert is not Comic-Con. People are not dressed up like, Mr. Spock and Captain Kirk and Sulu. These are people who are really fairly serious, right? They have had experiences. They're curious. They're open-minded. They want more information. And the speakers are the top researchers in the world and scientists and authors and award-winning filmmakers, broadcasters like George Knapp and George Norrie. I mean, Travis Walton and Whitley Strieber. Think of the people who were there.
Podcasters, yeah.
Avi Loeb zoomed in from Harvard, right? From Harvard. So it's a it's people, and you can make a little bit of fun. And in fact, you know what? It was disappointing. The LA Times did this. If you look at, I'll send you the link. The LA Times did a huge article. The article was very good, and then they had pictures of people with, dopey alien glasses and stupid, cartoon UFO. And it's like they had to do that. Like you had to go there, really. LA Times, you had to do that. You had to make fun of it, really. Like you had to do that. You couldn't have a picture of Travis Walton and Whitley Strieber and George Norrie. Legends, Richard Dolan, Nick Pope, and Steve Bassett. You have to have dopey people with stupid sunglasses on.
It's a jab, right? That's what it is. It's a
It
jab.
was like, okay, Dan, you want us to write about it? Here's your article. Okay, but jab. Look at the photos, Dan. Screw you. And Ron Janix said, Dan, the article was great and the photos were horrible. And I said, Ron Janix, when I start publishing the LA Times, I'll make sure the photos are. I had nothing to do with that.
Yeah. But they do that still with any report. I mean, some of them are more serious now on news. I mean, News Nation is doing a phenomenal job. Yeah.
Ross Coulthard. I can never say his name.
Yeah, Coulthard. And they're all getting threats. Like News Nation received threats to stop pursuing this and to leave. And they're not. They're continuing. And that's what we need. We need that kind of leadership. If there was nothing there, there'd be no reason for them to tell them to shut it down. Right?
Exactly. Of course. It's becoming slowly and steadily a little bit more mainstream. Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal certainly opened the door huge. December 2017, front page of the New York Times, front page. That was like, what? Right? After decades of little green men and you saw a UFO, you must be insane. And then the New York Times says, hey, government's still Project Blue Book ended December 69, right? Nothing to see here. 2017, the New York Times says, "Oh, we've been studying UFOs all the way through, never stopped." And so that was huge. David Grush, hero. I haven't met him, but I would love to. I think he's a hero. Let me jump into my backstory, if you don't mind, because how I got here, and Katie, I don't know if you know the whole story, but how I got here. There's a Yiddish word that I love called the word is beshert. Beshert is something meant to be, right? My children were beshert. My PR business was beshert. Some of my closest, dearest friends were beshert. My entree into ufology, you guys, was beshert, and I'll tell you exactly why. And it's the last thing I ever expected to happen. I didn't pursue it at all. It came to me. My story starts in March 1970. I'm almost 14 years old. My father one day picked me up from school and drove me home. I grew up in suburban New Jersey near Asbury Park, which is very famous because that's where Bruce Springsteen got discovered. So I knew Bruce in the 70s, and that's a whole other thing. So my father's driving me home, 1970, in his car. It's about 3 o'clock. It's in the afternoon. We're going through the suburban street. I look up through the windshield. There's a huge silver V letter V, like Victor, craft, huge, shiny silver V above my father's car. I look up, I go, Dad, stop the car. Stop the car. I'm 14. Dad, stop the car. There's a UFO. Dad, there's a UFO. Stop the car. He stops the car. We get out. We walk in front of the car. We look up, and you guys are literally, Dad, it's Star Trek. Dad, look, it's Star Trek. It's a UFO. Dad, can you believe it? Isn't this good? I'm jumping up. I couldn't be more excited, right? This huge and silver, huge. Each wing was like 2 school buses, and it's over my father's car, 400 feet in the air, right? What the hell's it doing there, right? You guys, my father looked at it like this. Then he's looking at his watch, looking at his car, like, I really should get the car washed. Dude, like looking like a head of lettuce in the supermarket. Like he'd seen it 5,000 times.
Like
Okay.
it's a cloud. Yeah.
No, 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 not he. It's like, oh, okay. Like he'd seen it before. Now here's the whole story. But that's the little first breadcrumb, right? Bored. My father was bored. After 2, 3 minutes, we're looking at it, and then he goes, "Okay, kid, come on, kid, let's go home." We get in the car, drive home. I go home in my house. Now this is 1970. Rotary phone. I don't know if you guys know what a rotary phone is. I called the rotary phone, the Asbury Park Press, my hometown newspaper. Hi, my name is Danny. I'm 14. I wasn't even 14. I'm 14, a couple of months away. I'm 14. I just saw a UFO with my dad, right? The lady said, Sonny, I can't talk to you right now. We're getting hundreds of phone calls about this. I gotta go. Clear, I remember it
Oh,
like
hey,
it was yesterday. Hundreds of phone calls. So I am not making this story up, and I hope you guys believe me, because I'm not a liar.
what year was it again?
March 1970. Okay, so I hang up the phone. She hangs up on me. No article ever ran in the paper. Okay, nothing ever ran. I checked. Now, I forgot that that happened, you guys, for 47 years. Now you're going to hear how my story really happened. I forgot that that happened for 47 years. Why? I was a drummer. I was in rock and roll bands. I was chasing around girls and stuff. I'm working with Bruce Springsteen and Kiss and Fleetwood Mac and Humble Pie and all the biggest rock bands in the world. I'm getting straight A's at school. I had life. I had life. So and my dad and I never discussed it ever, ever. And he passed, and we never discussed it. Not once ever did we discuss seeing, a pyramid of Egypt above my father. And we never discussed it. Think about that. He never brought that up to me ever. Okay. So that's why I didn't think about it. I forgot about it. Along the years later, in 96, my son and I were out in Lancaster in the high desert. He was 8. My ex-wife had moved my kids out there after my divorce. And my son wanted a telescope for his 8th birthday in Lancaster. Now, Lancaster, where they moved to, is near Edwards Air Force Base, okay? So I took my son, we had a telescope on his 8th birthday. This is May 96. And we're looking at the moon and the stars and Saturn with this telescope. And then a light appears in the sky. A very bright yellow, white egg shape just appears in the right-hand side part of the sky. I'll do my hand here. And then it goes all the way across the sky and very fast in a straight line. And it's very bright. And I said, Jordan, look, a satellite. Isn't that cool? We're seeing a satellite. And then you guys, it stopped on the left part. It stopped in place. And I looked at it and I said, oh my God, that satellite's going to fall to Earth. Something terribly wrong. I, honest to God, thought it was just going to plummet, right? It stopped 30 seconds. Then it turned around and it went back all the way, same way where it came from. Well, what can do that? What can do that? So I've told this story all over the world. Jimmy Church said, Dan, you were near Edwards. They do reverse engineering of UFO technology. It was a military drone or craft using UFO technology. Well, yeah. I mean, I believe that was a military craft using futuristic technology. What can hover and then go back the way it came from? Nothing that I could think of. That's my second UFO. 2007, I go to a bookstore to kill some time. I see paranormal books aisle. I'd never in my life heard of paranormal books. I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know. And you see Pyramids of Egypt, Chariots of the Gods, Zechariah Sitchin, the Betty and Barney Hill story, Richard Dolan's books, right? Travis Walton's books, Nazca lines, Bigfoot, all this fun stuff. And I looked, and I never in my life, I said, oh my God, this is the coolest stuff ever, right? So I go as many books as I think I bought 12 books in my hands. I went home, I read all the books. And in those books, I learned about MUFON. I didn't know, I hadn't heard of MUFON. This is 2007. I didn't know what it was. I hadn't heard of it. That's how new I am to all this. So in '07, I joined MUFON Southern California. Now they're every few months, but they had monthly meetings regularly in North Hollywood. So I go in summer 2007 to my first one ever, you guys. Giorgio Tsoukalos is the guest speaker. First one I ever went to. This is 2 years before Ancient Aliens existed, right? He's not famous, okay? Nobody knew who he was. Go there, and for 90 minutes, Giorgio Tsoukalos is doing Ancient Astronaut Theory's greatest hits. And he's going through UFOs in the Bible, UFOs in Renaissance art, petroglyphs, cave drawings, Betty and Barney, Travis Walton, Roswell, the pyramids, Stonehenge, the Nazca. He's doing the greatest hits. I'm like this. I'm like, literally, I'm like, for 90 minutes, tears. I'm not kidding. Tears are going like this. I'm like, this is the most amazing information I've ever heard in my entire life. I'm like 50, I think I'm 50 something years old. I'm like, where has all this information been? My whole life. I'm sitting there thinking, my parents never told me any of this, nor have any of my teachers. I'm Jewish, and I was hardcore Jewish until the age of 14. So my rabbi never told me. My friends never told me. My relatives, no one ever told me any of this information. I didn't know any of it at all. Not at all. So, Ancient Astronaut Theory, Eric von Daniken presents extraterrestrials came to Earth a very long time ago, right? Interacted with mankind, DNA-wise, propelled our chimpanzee ancestors to become who we are today. Blew my mind completely, utterly. At the end of the thing,
did it blow your mind in the sense that you believed it all, or that
I believed it. I believed it instantly, concurrently, as he's telling me, Michael. I'm like, okay, my whole entire view of the world is changing right now in real time. Okay, I go up to Giorgio. I hugged him at the end. Now he's not famous. I go, Giorgio, man. I go, you just changed my entire view of the world just now. And he goes, cool, man. Cool. That's cool. Okay. So from there, I'm like, oh my God. So I'm buying books. I'm going to MUFON meetings. I'm watching documentaries. I'm going to lectures. That's '07. '08, a year later, at a MUFON meeting. Do you guys know who James Gilliland is?
Heard of
I'm
him.
not familiar.
Katie, you've never been?
I've heard of him, but
Oh, okay, Katie, you really should go. So James Gilliland is this sweet, soft-spoken guy, like a hippie from the '60s, long hair with love beads, right, in a granny dress. He comes, MUFON '08, and he says, I own ESETI Ranch. Have you heard of ESETI Ranch?
mhm.
Oh, Jason, my brother, you got to take Lisa out here, okay? It's a world famous UFO hotspot, but it's
Oh,
open to
really?
it's not like Skinwalker. It's open to the public. He owns ESETI Ranch. He owns it. This one guy. And it's at the base of Mount Adams in Washington State. Now, Mount Adams, you guys, is one mountain down from Mount Rainier. And Mount Rainier, as we all know, Kenneth Arnold saw his UFOs in '47. It's one mountain down. It's the same range. So James Gilliland says, I'm having a 3-day weekend. So he's at the MUFON meeting and he's showing incredible films and videos of UFOs. And they're crystal clear. They're not like blurry, crappy shitty. They're crystal clear. And he goes one after the next, after the next. And he goes, people from NASA come all the time, and scientists come all the time, and the FBI comes all the time, and researchers come all the time. And whoever wants to come, you come.
That's interesting.
And his evidence was just overwhelming. So I had a girlfriend there at the time named Barbara. She was a TV writer, and we had just started dating. And I'm like, oh, so he goes, you guys, this July 4th weekend, '08, I have a 3-day open house Come to the ranch. I have an open house. Come to the ranch. I go, Barbara, can we go? Barbara, can we go? Barbara, can we please go with me? Please go with me. She thinks I'm crazy anyway with the UFO. She goes, yeah, okay, okay. So we went up to the East Eddy Ranch. Now it's about 150 acres of nothing. It's just barren land surrounded by trees. He has this one little house where he lives, James, and in the distance is Mount Adams. That's all it is. It's nothing with a little house and a mountain. That's all it is. We go there for 3 days, 4th of July weekend, '08. Now, I think it was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. During the days, he had a white tent on his property, and people spoke, like Nick Pope, William Henry. I remember they were there. Other people who I don't remember, but they showed films and panels and lectures. I think it was like a little baby contact in the desert, right? For 200 people. That's all it was under the tents during the day. And then at night, they made a bonfire on the field. And the same 200 people, including me and my girlfriend, they were playing guitars and singing and dancing around a bonfire. Okay. So Friday, and I had, at the time, I still had one of those old video cameras with the VHS tape in there, you know, the heavy one. So Friday during the day, lectures, panels, seminars, whoever Nick Pope was speaking during the day, the tent, and then at night, the bonfire, singing, dance, guitars. And you're looking up at the sky for like 5 or 6 hours. And you know, your neck hurts when you're looking up at the sky for 5 hours. So that was the first thing. Nothing in the sky. Okay, fine. Second day, Saturday, tent, lectures, films, seminars, Saturday night, bonfire, singing, dancing, guitars, look up in the sky, hours and hours and hours and hours. Absolutely nothing. And I'm thinking, oh man, nothing. This is so whack. This is whack. This is not going to happen. Sunday, lectures from seminars, bonfire, look up in the sky, a couple hours, nothing is nothing. I grab my car. Here's where the story gets good. Grab my car keys out of my pocket. There's 200 cars on the property, right? 200 cars. I grab my keys. I go, Barbara, if we leave right now, we can beat the rush. The second I said that, you guys, a giant black craft came from behind the trees, came over our heads, 400 feet above us, directly above us, huge black craft, blacked out the sky. And I look up and I go, what the hell is that? That's what I said. What the hell is that? And it hovered above us for several seconds. And I'm like, my heart's starting to pound fast. And I'm like, something's happening. Okay. Underneath this black thing, and I don't know the shape or size because it was so big and black, I couldn't tell you. In the middle of this thing underneath, I'm going to call it a glass crystal bulb, huge glass crystal bulb. It lit up very bright, very, very bright, dark emerald green color. Beautiful, gorgeous emerald green, like from the Wizard of Oz, that color green, right? And I'm like, okay. Then here's where it gets good. The light in the bulb, then, you guys, bathed us, all 200 people, bathed us in green, beautiful green light. And it was like this, like light, light, light.
Like
light.
flashing.
It was like Morse code, Jason. It's like Morse code, right? Light, 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 light. And it's like you know, in the X-Files when they're all looking up and they're in the white. I'm in green. We're in green. Everyone, we're bathed in green, beautiful green. And I'm thinking, now here's what I'm getting. As the light is bathing us, I'm getting this following. Not in my ear, not in my brain, in my heart. And I still feel it to this day. Here's what I got. Hello, we're here. Sorry we kept you waiting. We were delayed. We love you. Everything's cool. Don't be afraid. We love mankind. We love one another. Be kind to planet Earth. We have to go. We'll see you another time, but don't be afraid of us. Now, I still feel that in my heart. That was 2008, okay? I still feel it. Then the light turned off, and this is about 2 minutes of light. That's a long time. The light goes back in the bulb turns off, and then the craft slowly moved away in front of us, and then bang, zoom, disappeared over Mount Adams. Well, I'm crying. I mean, I'm crying now. Everyone is crying. Wow, can you believe that? Can you believe what just happened? Where people were hugging and dancing and kissing, and I'm like, profound moment in my life, and I still feel it, right? That's not a Chinese weather balloon, you guys, whatever that was.
Wasn't swamp gas.
That was not swamp gas. That was not a flock of geese.
Dan, do you know if anybody else there felt the same sort of message as you did?
I'm not in touch with the girlfriend anymore. And it was the end because then everyone got in their cars and left. You know, it was the
Right.
very tail end. Didn't ask any people, but I'm telling you, I mean, most of those people were crying. I don't know, Katie, if you've ever had a group experience like that, but it was profound. I mean, you could see like, wow, something remarkable, all of us.
What was the conversation with Barbara like after this?
I need to get back home. I have work to do. We broke up shortly there. I don't think she was too thrilled, quite frankly. I'll be honest with you. We broke up a few months later.
But did she
I,
have the same sort of visual experience that you?
God, I wish I remembered. Honestly, I really don't remember. I really don't. All I remember is that I was elated. I was enthralled. Okay, that's all I remember. All right, so that's '08, right? Okay, now we come to the modern era and how all of you guys have come to know me, and had the honor to meet you. Now we jump forward to 2017. Okay, right? 7 years ago. April 2017, my father dies. He died in Florida, not a good death, with his second wife, and he passed away, and it was not good. He had Alzheimer's, he had cancer, it was awful. So my father dies in Florida. I live in LA. 3 days after my father died, I wanted to get a pastrami sandwich at the deli that my dad and I used to go to eat pastrami sandwiches. And I went to get a pastrami sandwich and to mourn my father. Okay. That's why I went to this deli. No other reason. So I go to the deli, sit down, I order a pastrami sandwich from the waiter. He walks away. I'm sitting at the deli, at the table by myself, thinking about my dad. And you guys, everything I'm telling you now is God's honest truth. Okay. I'm sitting there thinking, Dad, I really miss you, man. Really miss you. A beam of light or energy came from above and bang into my head hard. A beam of something, bang, like this. I felt it, bang, hit my head through my eyes and my brain, projected in the air, 6 to 8 inches in front of my face, a color 3D hologram of the 1970 UFO sighting I had with my father. It played. It was a home movie, and it played. And I swear to you, this is a true story with audio. Now, my mother said it was a memory or something. It wasn't a memory because I'll tell you what. In the home movie, I see myself and my dad's car and the V and the camera. I'm going to say it's like God was the cameraman. God himself was the cameraman.
So it's like a third person perspective.
The camera was like maybe 10 feet behind my father's car, filming the entirety of the scene. So I was in the film. It wasn't from my eyes looking up. I saw me. I saw me and my dad in the car in the V. I saw the whole thing. And I saw me jumping up and down. And I'm watching this at the deli like this. It's like this. I'm watching. I'm like, oh my God, I remember that. I remember that. And then I see my dad looking bored, just like I described it, right? Now here's the killer, you guys. At the end of this little clip, it's about 30-second clip. My dad looks at me, he winks. Think about this. My dad winked at me and said, come on, kid, let's go home. I heard him say that. Now this vanishes. This stops playing. I'm shaking. I'm like, what the hell just happened? The hell is that? Then in my right ear, I hear, get a pen, get a pen, get a pen, get a pen. You need a pen, you need a pen. I asked the waiter for a pen. He gives me a pen. I put it in my right hand. There's a paper placemat on the table at the deli. My hand does automatic writing. Not me, my hand. My hand writes, write a book about benevolent aliens. Lead character's father knew about UFOs. Then I write capital A, capital T, capital C. My hand stops moving. I look at this paper. I'm like, what the hell is happening? What the hell is this? So I hold up the paper and I go, well, I guess I need to write a book. I write a book about benevolent. Okay, I need to write a book about benevolent. Lead character's father. Well, that would be my father knew about UFOs. ATC. I'm looking at what the hell is that? And after about 10 minutes, I came up with, after they came, this book was given to me. It was a download. It literally was given to me as a gift at the deli. Then I finally get my pastrami.
Can I get this to go, please? Yeah.
So then I got my sandwich, right? I inhale it. I race home. And then for the next 8 months, day and night for 8 months, I write my book. Now, who was my father? That's the whole key here, the whole key to this. First of all, this is 3 days after he died. I get a digital download and an automatic writing. Well, tell me that's not supernatural. Well, of course that's supernatural. My dad sent that message to me from heaven. I am convinced 100% without a question. My dad sent that to me as a gift. It was a parting gift from my dad. He died 3 days earlier, right? Now, who was my dad? My dad was a physicist and electronics engineer for the Army for 45 years, 51 to 96. We knew, we and my family, we knew he invented missile systems and radar systems for the Army, and that he spied on Russia and China and North Korea, whatever. And the only thing he ever said about his work when he was alive was, I helped America win the Cold War. That's all my dad ever said about his work. So now my dad's dead. I call my mother, who's still alive. She'll turn 90 soon. I go, Mom, did Dad ever talk about UFOs? Because everything my dad had to do was in the sky. My mother told me a story after he died I'd never heard before. She said, in the early 50s, they took your dad deep into the vaults at Fort Monmouth, New Jersey Army Base, and they showed him something top secret. And your father came home and he was pale and shaking and very nervous. And my mother said, honey, what's wrong? And my father said, I saw something today I could never tell you about as long as I live. It's above top secret. My mother said my father was never the same after that day. Now, do you guys know the story of Jackie Gleason and Richard Nixon?
Yeah, I heard that they got to see something, at least Jackie Gleason, right?
Richard Nixon was Katie, you know the story, right? Richard Nixon was president. He and Jackie Gleason were very good friends. They're playing golf in Florida. Nixon is president at the time. Nixon goes, hey, Jackie, you want to see something cool? Sure. I'll pick you up tonight at your house. Nixon picks up Jackie Gleason at Gleason's house in his car, Nixon's car. There's no Secret Service. There's no motorcade. It's just Nixon, the man, driving a car with his buddy, Jackie. It's the two of them in a car, a regular
He's an
car.
actor, right? Jackie Gleason's
Jackie
just
is a very, very famous comedian. Did you ever hear of The Honeymooners?
Mhm.
The funniest, probably the funniest show ever. He's with the funniest man, one of the funniest guys who ever
Straight
lived.
to the moon.
Alice, bang, zoom to the moon, Alice, to the moon.
Yeah.
So Nixon picks up Gleason, drives to, and you could Google, I don't remember, Katie, unless you remember. I think it was an Air Force base, but it was in Florida. Nixon pulls up to an Air Force base in a car. The guard goes, sir, can I help you? Nixon rolls down the window. Yeah, can you open the gate? It's the President of the United States. The guard goes, oh my God, Mr. President, what do you do? Open the gate, son, right? Open the gate. Oh, okay. What are you going to do? Say, no, it's the president. Opens the gate. Gleason and Nixon drive their car onto this, I think it was an Air Force base. Nixon shows Jackie Gleason dead alien bodies. They come home. Gleason's wife, and I've read this in several books, Gleason's wife says he stayed in the house for weeks afterwards. He was very upset, very depressed, and he was stunned. He couldn't believe what he had seen. He was upset. Well, doesn't that sound like my father's story?
Yeah.
Father came home. My mother goes, your father was never the same.
It
Okay.
reminds me too of the astronauts in the debrief after, and they all looked the same way. Like they
That's
saw
true. Yeah,
that.
good point, Katie. Yeah.
So that's one of the clues. Okay, so my dad worked for the Army for 45 years. He worked at a top secret military base. My mother said he saw something top secret. Okay, now there's more clues to come. After my father died, I looked through his old papers and I found a profile of my father from 1985 from his workplace. And the bottom line is, you guys, my father invented military drones for the Army. My father helped to invent military drones using lasers for the Army. I have that in writing. I have that in proof in writing. Okay. Well, nobody knew my father worked on drones. My father helped invent drones. Think about, okay, that's pretty intense. Yeah, Katie.
I was going to ask, when did the creation of drones start? And could that be why he was so nonchalant about what he was seeing?
Right, Katie, you're jumping ahead about 5 minutes in my story, but
Oh,
yes,
she's good. She's good. She's an
Katie's good.
investigator. Yeah.
Katie knows all. I love her. Okay, so now I have proof my father invented drones. Okay. Now I'm reading Richard Dolan's book, UFOs and the National Security State, Volume 1. In the back of that book is a glossary of UFO sightings over military bases throughout history. In Dolan's book in 1951 and 1952, there were UFO sightings on radar over Fort Monmouth, New Jersey. That's where my dad worked, and he had just started working there at the time. I'm like, that's interesting. That's pretty interesting. Now we come to the best clue of all. Last year, Stephen Greer did a 3-hour talk at the Washington Press Club. And among part of his talk was that he's in touch with so many whistleblowers who want to come forward, but they're waiting for the Schumer Rounds bill to get passed, so they'll be protected. They won't go to jail. They won't lose their pensions. My dad never said a word ever. Why? One word, pension. My dad was not going to jeopardize his pension. There's no way that was going to happen. Okay, so Greer does this talk. In Greer's talk, and it's on TV, he shows a slide on the TV of 145 U.S. military bases that he has proof of through whistleblowers that worked on reverse engineering of retrieved alien technology. Okay. So I freeze framed my TV. I said, and there's 145 bases listed in this graph. And I go up number 51, Fort Monmouth, New Jersey. It's where my dad worked. I'm like, oh my God, there it is. There it is. Proof. It's proof. So, who was my dad? My dad invented military drones. He was a genius. He worked for the Army for 45 years, top secret work. He saw something that blew his mind in the 50s. There were UFO sightings over his workplace. Fort Monmouth worked on reverse engineering of UFOs. And my dad and I saw an incredible UFO together, and he winked at me. Okay. What does that mean, Katie? My dad knew what that was.
Yeah, he did.
My dad knew what that thing was. And he gave it to me as a gift 3 days after he died. And here's what the gift was. And I've told this story all over the world. George Norrie loves this story. My father was Danny. I couldn't tell you what I did for a living my entire life because I signed NDAs. But now that I'm dead, I don't have any NDAs anymore. Remember that UFO that we saw? I worked on that, or I knew what that was, or that was part of my work. That was the gift my father gave me. So I write this book after they came, based on it's science fiction, but it weaves in me and my dad and what I know about ufology, and it's a pretty good story. Benevolent aliens come to Earth to save mankind, working through this one schmucky guy who is drowning himself on page 1, and he's drowning himself because he hates his life. They save his life, the aliens. They present him to the world, and they say, we love this man. This man is going to work with us to cure all of your problems. Be kind to him. And through the course of the book, he meets the president. He goes to the UN. He meets with the aliens regularly. They solve famine. They solve hunger. They solve disease. They eliminate every nuclear weapon. They reverse climate change. They do every imaginable thing. And a year later, he wins the Nobel Prize. His best friend's the president. He's reunited with his children. He marries the beautiful woman of his dreams. That's just the first third. And then the next 2/3, you'll have to read the book. So that's how all that happened. Now, the book came out in March 2023. The day it came out, I was at Alien Con in Pasadena, and I gave a copy to Giorgio. I gave a copy to Eric Von Daniken. Eric goes, oh, I haven't read this one yet. I go, Eric, it just came out today. That's probably why you haven't read it yet. I gave a copy to Paul Hynek and to George Knapp and to Jeremy Corbell and other people, and I'm promoting the book. 2 weeks later, in March 2023, I go to UFO Con in San Francisco. That's where I met Stephen Bassett. Now, this is where a lot of things get propelled forward. I met Steve Bassett there. He gave a lecture about disclosure, and I didn't know that term in regard to the UFO movement. I didn't know really what the disclosure movement, Katie, you've known for years, but I didn't know what it was. So my brother and I listened to Bassett for 90 minutes, and my brother goes, God, this guy's a genius. And I go, yeah, he's really compelling, isn't he? I need to give him my book. So after the lecture, he goes to have dinner, Bassett, with some friends at the diner at the hotel. My brother and I go to have dinner by ourselves. I walk up to Stephen. I go, hey, Stephen, I really enjoyed your talk. I'd like to gift you a copy of my book. I hand it to him. I go, my name is Dan. I shook hands. And he goes, thank you, Dan. He goes, what do you do? I go, I'm a Hollywood publicist. Stephen, you're a Hollywood publicist? Are you serious? Are you serious? I need a publicist. I need a publicist. He stands up, pulls out like a handful of business cards, like a dozen cards. They go flying. All of his business cards go flying. He's so excited to meet me. He goes, please, will you be my publicist? Will you be my publicist? I need a publicist. I'm like, let's meet. Let's hang. So we exchange cards. 2 months later, May 2023, Stephen calls me, tail end of May. He goes, Dan, I'm in LA. Let's have lunch. Stephen and I had a 3-hour lunch at a famous restaurant in Hollywood. And he tells me his life story. I tell him my life story over a large antipasta salad, I might add. And at the end, Stephen says to me, Dan, I'm a disclosure guy. You're a Hollywood guy. What can we do together? Okay, so you guys, here's where my life takes a turn. I looked up at the sky for 5 seconds like this. And then I go, Stephen, we're going to create the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. And he goes, oh my God, that's exactly right. And we shake hands. He goes, that's it. Now, 4 days later, I meet Katie Page at Contact in the 4 days later, I go to Contact in the I'm Stephen's guest. In fact, he let me stay in his room. I had never been there before. I knew about it, but I'm like, I don't want to schlep out to Palm Springs. It's a 3-hour drive. It's a pain in my ass. I don't go there. Dan, you have to go. Everyone's there. I'll introduce you. You have to go. He goes, promise me you're going to go. Okay, I'll go. So I go. So Stephen Bassett. Now, Bassett at Contact is like Moses. Okay. It's like being with Paul McCartney. Okay. So yeah, I just met the guy. I didn't know him. I'm walking behind Bassett and he's walking through crowds. Stephen, can I get a picture? Can I get an autograph? Steve, oh, you're Steve Bassett. And I'm like, wow, this guy's pretty prominent. I knew a little bit about him. I didn't realize he was Ringo. I mean, yeah. So he introduces me to Paul Hynek and Richard Dolan and Nick Pope and Ron Janiks and George Noory and Katie Page. Stephen introduced me to you, if you recall. And I'm meeting everyone, and Stephen and I are telling everyone Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. Everyone we told is like, oh my God, I want to do that. George Noory grabbed my shoulder. He goes, Danny, make me member number 1. I said, George, you're member number 1. Nick Pope, oh, I want to do that. Richard Dolan, oh yeah, of course. So now we're 4 days in. We have members. We have 3 words. Hollywood Disclosure, 3 words and members. We didn't know what it was. Had no idea what it was. We didn't have a logo or a website or a mission statement. We had no idea what it was. So all of last summer and into last fall, Stephen and I met countless times over lunches and dinners and Zoom. What the hell is Hollywood? What is it? What is it? What is it? I don't know. What is it? I don't know. My daughter's a graphic artist. My daughter created the logo and she created a website. And we ultimately came up with the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance is a networking group. I call it Match.com for ufologists. It's ufologists on one half and Hollywood storytellers on the other half, 50-50. And the ufologist half are UFO researchers, experiencers, and disclosure advocates, and researchers. And the Hollywood side, and Hollywood just means the entertainment industry. It doesn't have to be Hollywood proper. Hollywood side is writers, producers, directors, performers, people who have the ability to get a story onto a screen. Okay? So that's the premise. Today we have 200 members around the world. We have Shirley MacLaine, Dee Wallace, Thomas Jane, Dave Foley. We've been trying to get Dan Aykroyd for a long time.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Been trying to get him.
Yeah.
We have the beautiful Katie Page, Richard Dolan, Nick Pope, Steve Bassett, George Norrie, Travis Walton, Whitley Strieber, Linda Moulton. I mean, it's George Norrie, George Knapp. No, George Knapp is not a member, actually. But no, if you look at the website, and Jason, you just joined, and your lovely wife, Lisa, who I adore, it grows every month. Our membership grows and grows and grows. We've had a few live events. The truth is we need funds to have more live events. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. We are trying to raise money. We need more donations. We need people to donate. We're going to do an event in in September. We're going to do a live event, September 22nd, with Thomas Jane and Ron James. They're going to do presentations there. The first event we did was in March, called The Making of Project Blue Book, the TV show. And we had Paul and Joel Hynek there talking about Dr. Alan Hynek, their father, and all the creators of the Project Blue Book TV series. And that was so cool. We had 70 people there, and that was a lot of fun. That was a really great. So we need more money to have live events. The best thing we have right now is a Slack channel. Katie, I think you're in the Slack channel. We have a Slack channel for HDA members. We have 75 people in there, and they talk to each other. And it's like, hey, Ancient Aliens season 96 is casting. They need the women who've been abducted, who've been impregnated. Or I'm writing a book, I'm researching a book about military involvement with UFOs. I need experts. And the two groups of people have been talking in the Slack channel, and it's very robust. And every day people contribute. That's the biggest thing that we offer right now.
Go ahead, Katie.
Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to ask Dan, what do you think the role of entertainment in Hollywood, in movies and film and documentaries is for ufology? Because on one hand, we know it's entertainment, but on the other hand, we want truths, that history and truth out there. So how do you merge those two, and how does the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance see that?
That's exactly the premise for what HDA is all about, Katie. And in fact, we talked about that topic at our panel. That was one of the things we talked about at the panel. So basically, for the last 80 years, Hollywood has treated aliens and UFOs as evil creatures who are coming to destroy Earth, to kill us and eat us. Kill us or eat us. There's quite a few properties when aliens are going to eat us. Do any of you remember there's a famous Twilight Zone episode called To Serve Man? Have any of you seen that one, Michael?
I have not, no.
Jason, Google Twilight Zone To Serve Man.
It is a great, almost M. Night Shyamalan sort of twisty.
Oh, really, eh? Okay.
Excellent.
Yeah.
One of my favorites.
Basically, aliens come to Earth. I saw it when I was 12, Michael, and I'm like, this absolutely blew my mind. And I've seen it a few times since then. Aliens come to Earth. We're benevolent. We're here to help you. We're benevolent. Oh, wow. Okay, aliens are here. Oh, cool. They have a ship land, and they invite human beings to come on their ship, and they're going to show.
Don't spoil it. You're not going to spoil it, are you?
They eat them, don't they? Yeah. It's a Hannibal.
No,
No.
All right, I'm not going to spoil it, but Jason, you need to see it. To serve me. So historically, Hollywood has now at the panel, Katie, we identified 4 movies in history forever that showed benevolent aliens: E.T., Close Encounters, The Abyss, and The Arrival. So there's 4 movies out of what, 4,000 movies? There's 4 that they were benevolent, right? And 2 of them were Spielberg, who obviously had inside tracks all the way through, and he knew J. Allen Hynek. They were friends. So Katie, to answer your question, where we're at now, the goal of HDA is to have the UFO, people like you and me, and experiencers who have stories that are real life stories. I have a friend who was abducted from the age of 5 every few years. He's 60 now, by beautiful, gorgeous Pleiadians. Gorgeous. He said the women are so beautiful, you cry when you look at them. He's been taken since 5 every few years for 55 years on board this huge craft. He said they're teachers. They've been teaching me and the other people they take how to be kind to our fellow man and how to be kind to planet Earth. This is a great story. This absolutely should be a movie. 10 years ago, the Pleiadians. He calls them the light people. He said they just shine. He calls them the light people. 10 years ago, he was on board. The light people, his name is Mark, and I could hook you up, Jason, if you want to interview him. He's a great guy, Mark Lenmore. The Pleiadians said, Mark, your mission on Earth is to bring solar energy to Native American Indians in the American Southwest. They don't have energy. 10 years ago, right? Today, Mark runs a huge solar company called Solar Utility Network. He's a multi-millionaire. He's been bringing power to Indians. He's a hero to Indians honor him at tribal presentations. And he goes, Dan, the aliens implanted in my head a diagram, like a schematic for a solar power energy, the technology. They put it in his head, the technologies. He sketched it out, met with engineers. They realized what he had been given. And he's bringing solar energy to Indians. Well, if that's not a remarkable story, and it's true, it's a true story. I know this guy. He's not a bullshit artist. This guy's a very successful guy.
And the odds are of that being
Like a workable,
just a coincidence or something like that is not really existent. Like it's possible, but it's not plausible. Like that's not, it's possible it could happen, but what are the odds, right?
Talk to Mark, man, because he'll tell you every detail. And he's just now, I met him last year. In the last year, he's starting to come out with his stories. He goes, Dan, my stories are so remarkable. My whole life, no one believed me. He goes, I didn't tell my friends and relatives. I don't want to be ridiculed.
Yeah.
He's starting, he just told his wife last year. He's just starting to come out, so to speak, in this topic. He's one of my best friends. He's writing a book. I'm going to help him get it published. But he's wanting to get his word out now. So that's a story. So Katie, to answer you is people like Mark or you, or people who have remarkable real life stories and people who are not married to Bigfoot and live in a tree. Real people, real life people who are not crazy. And the Hollywood writers, producers, directors who are looking for content. And the goal of HDA is to the next era of movies and TV shows and documentaries be based on real life experiences from real life people. That's why Stephen and I created HDA. That's really the goal now, to have that happen. And I'll tell you this, I'll add this in. There's a brand new TV show in pre-production, right? I'm sorry, in development. They just hired me. I'll be part of it. It's going to be essentially an updated version of the X-Files. It's not the X-Files, but it's very, very similar. And the people behind it, and I can't because I signed an NDA, the people behind it are major UFO people that you know are behind this show. And they said, we want the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance to work with us to present this show to the world. Under the auspices of the HDA. I'm like, wow, I'm honored. Are you kidding? Wow, that's cool. Is
our boy David Altman part of that?
Okay, there you go, Jason. So you can say, I'm not going to say it, but you can
I'm
say
in
it.
on it. So yeah, we're good.
You're in on it? Yeah,
I'm in on it. Yeah.
All right. Better you than me. I'm not going to say anything.
No, this is awesome. And where can people find more about the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance?
Okay, so HollywoodDisclosureAlliance.org is the website. All our members are up there on the UAP ET side, and on the Hollywood side, our board of directors is up there. We have a donate page, which would be lovely if people could help us donate there. The more funds we have, because listen, I've been paying for this thing. Me and my daughter have been running this thing from day one, and we're out a lot of money just to be upfront. We've paid out of pocket so far, thousands and thousands of dollars.
Wow.
So we need donations to move it forward. I'm committed to this thing. I gave birth to this. I mean, this was I have a son, a daughter, a business, and HDA. I have given birth to 4 things in my life. This is one of my this is my newest baby on the block. At HollywoodDisclosureAlliance.org. You can join. You can be a member. You can write to me. You can find out more. And if you join, Jason, like I said, and Katie, and Michael, I'll put you in if you'd like. You can talk to our other members in our Slack channel, which
I'd love to be involved. Yeah.
Yeah. Email me your bio and your photo. That's all I need. And then people are are robust. And David Altman is suddenly, like in the last 2 weeks, David Altman's become, he calls me 6 times a day. He's like my new best friend. I never heard of the guy in my life, and now he's my best friend. Dan, I want you to be an associate producer. You're going to be our publicist. We're gonna have you be a guest star on some of the episodes. I'm like, what? What? I don't want to be on camera. So that's really, really happening. Also, personally and selfishly, Dan Harary, author.com, Dan Harary, author.com. All my books are there. I've written 5 books. My
That's
newest
Harary.
author. That's right. Dan
Yes.
Harary, author. All my books are there. The history of the books, photos. My first book came out 2 years ago. It's called Flirting with Fame. That's my Hollywood book. That's the first book that got me going. I have pictures in there. That's a fun book, man. I have pictures in there with Spielberg, me and Spielberg, and Mel Brooks and Jerry Seinfeld and Alice Cooper and Hugh Hefner and Mickey Dolan. I have pictures and stories. So if you like Hollywood stories, get my first book, Flirting with Fame. If you like UFO stories, is after they came. 5 is dark, twisty, and evil. And my paranormal life, that's ghosts and poltergeists and my real life UFO encounters as well. So
It's
I've been
beautiful.
cranking out books the last 2.5 years, and I'm a late bloomer apparently. So there you go.
Well, we absolutely love the idea and the concept of the Hollywood Alliance, and obviously all 3 of us, being part of it, and even the podcast being an affiliate. Whenever you guys need anything, if there's an interview, somebody that's joined that you want to hook up, at any point in time, Dan, just contact us and we'll make that happen. And hopefully this is not your only time on the podcast. Let's get you back on several times.
Yeah, I'd love to.
And talk about different things. And just, in closing, guys, this is the sort of movement that we need, is to bring people together, unity. And, the podcast has always been about that, and to affiliate ourselves with people that are similar, like-minded individuals that have that in mind. Like, that's exactly what this is all about. So
Jason, conversely, if you guys ever need victims, I call it victims. If you ever need people to interview, I mean, HDA, there's almost 200 people up there. So, hey, Dan, can you introduce me to Mo, Larry, and Curly, whoever it is, right? I can hook you up that way. So conversely, it goes back and forth.
I think you hooked us up with Thomas Jane. I think originally, did you not?
He's one of my new best friends.
Yeah,
the nicest guy in the world. Nicest
we
guy
love
in the
him.
world.
We love him.
I love Thomas Jane. When I met Thomas Jane, I shook his hand. I said, Thomas, your movie 60. Did you ever see the movie 61?
Mm-hmm.
I have not. No.
He plays Mickey Mantle, New York Yankee legend Mickey Mantle. It's probably the best baseball movie ever made. And Billy Crystal was the director, by the way. So
I didn't know that. That's crazy.
When I met Thomas, I go, Thomas, 61 is literally one of my favorite movies. He goes, really? Wow, cool, man. Thanks for telling me that. And then my daughter met Thomas, and my daughter goes, Thomas, the sweetest thing is one of my favorite movies. And he goes, really? You like that one? So he's done comedy, drama, horror, sci-fi, action adventure. This guy is so versatile. He's done, if you look at his resume, he's done everything.
He's done apparently. Yeah.
Yeah, he's done the most Stephen King movies and series of all time.
Right.
Like, he's got to be the actor that's
The
done
Mist. Did you ever see The Mist? Oh my God.
Yeah, he's a phenomenal actor, but he's so cool in person. Like, even at Contact in the Desert, he's walking around with no shoes. He's just focused. He's just like a casual, just easygoing guy. And, they say never meet your heroes, but in the case of Thomas Jane, I would highly recommend it, right?
I've never seen Thomas Jane wear shoes.
No.
Literally.
No, he hates shoes. That's awesome.
Making that a life goal. Like, that's how you know you've made it, when you were exempt from the social expectation of wearing shoes.
And every time I've met him at least 6, 7, 8 times now. Every time he wears the same shirt, same pants. He's the least affected millionaire movie star that I've met many.
Yeah.
He's the least affected. He's a regular guy, man. He's like a guy that'd be digging a ditch to fix your sewer out in front. And he's one of the most gifted actors I've never seen. And I even at Contact, I go, Thomas, you don't wear shoes ever? And he goes, Dan, I fucking hate shoes. I hate shoes. Who has ever said that sentence in their life? I hate shoes.
After 6 years old, you're not allowed to say that.
I hate black licorice. Okay. He hates shoes.
So I don't like socks. I don't mind shoes, but socks
I don't do socks. Yeah. I don't do socks. I don't shoes. I hate shoes. Have you ever heard of such a sentence in your life?
Yeah.
I
And
love
he's
boots.
dead serious.
Yeah.
No, he was dead. He wasn't kidding. He was dead serious. Something must have happened. He must have been scared as a child for like a giant shoe, like a
Somebody
dream.
beat him with a shoe at some
Someone beat
point.
him with his shoe. Absolutely had to have happened.
What's
Who
the
hates
same with
shoes?
Peter Jackson in New Zealand, the director? He does not wear shoes, and the bottom of his feet has like calluses, like crazy. He doesn't need shoes. He just walks barefoot, like even
The
in
Kenyan
nature when he was
runners.
recording. Yeah.
I would love to see the bottom of Thomas Jane's feet, quite frankly. I bet you he has calluses that are 2 inches thick.
You and a lot of us.
Yeah, well,
You could say he's very well grounded, huh?
Hey,
Awesome.
hi-oh.
Cheesy dad jokes. I'm full of them. Awesome. Dan Harari, thank you so much for being our guest today.
That was great. Thank you.
We are booming actually recently, guys, with our interviews. It seems like we're doing several of them a week, which is good. I mean, the audience wants to listen to us. So we haven't had a few episodes out for a while. So now we're just going to bombard them with it. But please, guys, join the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. Look into purchasing the books for Dan Harari as well. He's got amazing books out there. Lisa and I got 2 of them. Lisa's reading one of them right now.
Oh, let me know what she thinks. By the
Oh,
way.
absolutely. Yeah. She was thrilled to just be added to the Hollywood Disclosure and just to meet you guys. Like I didn't know how she was going to react at Contact in the Desert, but my wife responded beautifully and it blew her mind. And I think, for the listeners, please support Contact in the Desert. Show up next year. It's a blast. The people is amazing, and everybody who's who in ufology are easy to approach, talk to, take pictures with. It's an amazing event, and Ron Janix is doing a fantastic job with the crew there. So again, from UAP Studies Podcast, guys, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, man.